Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to those that are watching us live, and good morning, good afternoon, and good night to those that are watching us deferred. My name is Saul, and I am co-organizer of the Android developer group here at Vigo. And for those who you don't know Vigo, I will bet that we have the best gastronomy in the world. We have awesome landscapes, seafood, and if you want to come, please ping me, and I will be a great host, I promise. We also have very top people in terms of Android development that in this group, normally before the COVID era, we used to meet every month and to talk about Android, get some nice beers, and that kind of stuff. Anyway, a couple of weeks ago, together with the Android developer group Madrid and the Android developer group Barcelona, we have decided to do a bunch of online events from time to time since we think that we have a lot of very talented people here in Spain, and why not, if possible, we can do some events on English from time to time, as this one. And well, without much more, I'd like to introduce you to the speakers that we have today, which is Alfredo. And I'm very grateful that have you, Alfredo, here today, and that you have been, I don't know, you proposed to that talk with us. And a quick introduction for him: he works as a software engineer at GitHub and has been working at Microsoft for almost 5 years, if I'm not wrong. And something that I took from LinkedIn is that as a programmer, he is an advocate of the solid principles, and in his to-do list is learning how to program in functional, right? Okay, so without much more, I will let you command the session, Alfredo. So it's all yours. If you want to share your screen, I can add you to the stream as well.
Cool. Thank you very much for the introduction. So let me share my screen. Okay. So okay, cool. You are supposed to be seeing my PowerPoint. Okay, so let's gonna start with a quick overview of the talk. We are gonna start talking about why dependency injection, because this talk is about dependency injection tool. Then we will go through how to use Hilt, and then we will finish with a couple of slides talking about our experience in GitHub using Hilt. But first of all, I always like to start these kind of talks with a quote, and this is something that a former colleague of mine told me 5 years ago when I was starting to do Android. And to be honest, in that time, I didn't know much about Dagger or about dependency injection. He basically told me, I never get mad, not even with those who speak bullshit about Dagger. And in that time, yeah, I said, okay, opinions, everybody has their opinions. Dagger for me is kind of difficult. I don't know if it's the best tool, but now, 5 years later, I'm starting to understand why he felt in the way that he felt about Dagger. So first things come first, what is dependency injection? And let's go through an example to try to understand or to try to see the advantages of dependency injection. Let's gonna bake a cake. And to bake a cake, we need some stuff like appliance and ingredients. A naive implementation of a cake producer could be this one, in which we see that we have some members inside the class, which is the stuff that we need to bake the cake. But we can rethink this class a little bit like this. In here, we can see that we are passing all the dependencies through the constructor. And this is what is called this pattern dependency injection, because we are injecting all the dependencies into the class. Why dependency injection is cool, or is something that we should try to strive for? Well, it helps decoupling classes, as we saw before. Now we are passing to the classes that we need. If we define that parameter with an interface, we could change the concrete implementation. So, for instance, we can use a microwave, a gas oven, electric oven, whatever that fulfills the duty of baking. It favors composition for the things that we mentioned before, and overall, it makes testing easier. For our unit tests, we can pass a mock or whatever that we prefer to make our life easier. And now it's time to talk about Hilt. As soon as you start reading documentation or watching videos about Hilt, the word opinionated will appear very often. And for a foreign English speaker as I am, opinionated is kind of not clear. So I went to the dictionary and look for the definition. And you see that opinionated means that, define its way. An opinionated person is certain about the beliefs and express their ideas strongly and often. And they quote, they were opinionated and selfish, but undeniable clever. And I think this is the perfect definition for Hilt. We must say that Hilt is built on top of Dagger. And according to what I read, it's an internal tool used by Google. And at some point, I guess they decide to open source it. Why? Well, because if you have some experience with Dagger, you probably have realized that everybody uses Daggers in a different way. So you can switch between projects, and the way that you use Dagger is completely different. Most likely, you are going to need to come back to the documentation and update yourself or whatever. So I guess this is kind of another try of Google to try to make dependency injection easier to learn. Also, we must mention that Hilt has a growing tooling and ecosystem support. The IDE, Android Studio, provides native navigation, so you can quickly go to where the dependency is being defined and where it is being used, which is really nice. And also it provides APIs for things that traditionally has been hard to use dependency injection, like view models or manager. Not hard, but complex, because it needs to create different classes, helping classes, and Hilt makes this super easy. Which types of injections we could find in an Android app? Well, mainly two types, constructor injection and field injection. Constructor injection is basically what we saw at the beginning with the get processor. We pass the dependencies through the constructor. And field injection is also very typical in Android. In Android, most of the times, of the Android components, we don't have access to the construction logic. We have a callback, which basically tells us, okay, the activity or the service or the broadcast is ready. You can use it. But we don't have access to the constructor. In these situations, we need to define the dependency as a field of the class that eventually, once we reach the on-call, we will set with the proper values. How to inject dependencies using Hilt? Well, Hilt is basically annotations. Everything is going to be annotated, mostly everything. For instance, the most important one, and the one that, I should mention, sorry, I forgot to mention that Hilt works generating classes. Under the hood, while doing compilation, it will generate wrappers or Dagger components that will replace the bytecode our classes. The most important annotation that you should remember to use is Hilt Android app. Without this, nothing is going to work. This basically is an annotation that we add to the application level, and it triggers all the dependency logic. Then we should identify in our app all the Android classes that are going to consume dependencies, all the activities, services, view, fragments, whatever, and annotate them with Android entry point annotation. An example of this, continuing with our bakery example, is this one. We already have the application annotated with application annotation, then the bakery activity exactly the same with the Android entry point, and we could safely define the dependency. The dependency is using field injection, as we saw before, and the way that we tell Hilt that this is going to be a dependency, or they should set the dependencies are in the inject annotation here. From here, once we reach the onCreate method, we can safely use our dependency that is going to be there, ready, waiting for us. How do we define a dependency as injectable? So how do we find that a class is going to be a dependency in other places? Well, the most straightforward way is using constructor injection. This is very simple. We only need to add the annotation to the constructor of the class, and here we realize that this is a dependency that is going to be consumed at some point in the app. The cool thing about this is that anything that we pass it to the constructor is going to be also injected by Hilt. Obviously, we need to define these dependencies in a different place, or using construction injection, or different tools that we will see later on. But Hilt will do this for us, so it completely decouples this class from the code. At some point, we will have dependency injection up and running. We have to use only 3 annotations: application activity, entry point activity, and the inject. But life is not that easy. Life is not guns and roses. In some occasions, we don't have access to the constructor. For instance, classes that we don't own, like retrofit or coil, that in order to retrieve an instance of the class, you need a builder pattern or a constructor, or dependencies that we define using an interface. In these situations, Hilt asks us to write modules. And this is probably the only code that we are going to need to write to use Hilt. Modules, another different one that we will talk in the future. Coming back to the situations that we are not able to use the constructor, the first case that we told was classes that we don't own. For instance, coming back to our example, let's suppose that we have an open class with a private constructor. The only way to retrieve an instance of open will be using this static method over here. Obviously, Hilt won't have access to the constructor. So we need to access open using modules and annotating it with them with provides. A module is a very simple class. It's an object which is annotated with the module annotation, and then it contains a method. The return type of the method is going to be the dependency that is going to set. And the body of the method is going to be the logic that is going to instantiate that dependency, that concrete dependency. So everywhere in the app that we see a dependency of type appliance, the result of open construct will be set. And the second case, and the second scenario that we saw before of classes that cannot be injected using construction injection are interfaces. So for instance, let's suppose that we have a class which is defined by an interface, which is mixer. Mixer is an abstraction, and two concrete implementations of mixer are quick mixer and slow mixer. If we were to use or to declare a dependency of type mixer, Hilt won't know which concrete instance it should provide, quick mixer or slow mixer. In these situations, we define what another different kind of module annotated with the bind notation. In this case, the module looks a little bit more different. It's not an object, it's an abstract class. And the method is super simple. It's just a method with a bind annotation, method declaration. The return type will be the kind of dependency that Hilt will provide. And the parameter that you're passing to the function will be the concrete implementation. So everywhere in the app that we declare a dependency X mixer, Hilt will set a quick mixer. But in the two examples that we saw before, there was annotation that we didn't talk about, which was installed in. And this takes us to the next point, which is components. Components is also a very important part of Hilt. Basically, they provide the dependency itself. What does it mean? It means that every single class generated by Hilt, EntryPoints or whatever, is going to be associated one by one with a component. It means that application is going to be bounded to a component. An activity is going to be bounded to a component. A fragment is going to be bounded to a component. And this component is going to provide all the dependencies that we declare on there. How? Well, in its module, we annotate them with install in. And this install in is going to specify in which component they are instantiated. Hilt comes with a few components defined by default. Each component is bounded to one of the Android classes lifecycle. For instance, application component is bounded to the application class. So as long as we have an application component will be there. Activity component is bounded to activities. So as long as we have an activity, it's going to be there. And each activity is going to have their own activity component. And the same for fragment components. Then we have something in the middle, which is activity retain component, which is like an activity component, but it survives configuration changes. Very useful for view models. And then Hilt also provides a couple of more of components which are for services and view, but for the simplicity's sake, I remove them from the presentation. So coming back to our example, let's suppose that we would like to declare mixer as a dependency at application level. So starting the application, going to the activity, fragment, use, whatever, mixer is going to be available to use as a dependency. Then we have to declare the module to be installed at application component. This will guarantee that application component will always be available or able to inject or provide mixer instances. Graphically, it looks like this. This graphic is highly inspired by one of the Google videos about this. And basically, you see here that application component is at the top level and the mixer module is installed on it. And then each activity component is reusing, or is inheriting all the dependency-defined application component. Then once we declare the dependencies at activity level, activity component requires the application component to create or to provide a mixer instance. An application component knows how to instantiate a mixer instance because the module is installed on it. We can see that every single instance of the mixer that is being declared in the activities has been set with a different ID. This means this is because Hilt provides dependencies and a new dependency every time that someone requests a new instance of the object. This is what they call bindings, this is what they said, that this is why they say that bindings are unscope. This means, as we said before, that all instances are going to be new. Obviously, this is not what we want every time. Sometimes we would like to have singleton behaviors. For instance, if you are declaring as a dependency credentials or a database or whatever. There's a solution for that, and it's called scoping. The scoping is just another annotation that we add into the module, into the method that provides the dependency that declares that this class, this instance, every single instance of the mixer should be the same instance. Every dependency declared as a mixer should be the same instance, a singleton or fashion singleton. In our example, graphically, it will look like this. Now our mixer module is declared as a singleton, and every time the activity component requests for a dependency of type mixer, it will be the same instance. It was mentioning that we could do exactly the same at different levels for each component. So you could declare a singleton only, or you could declare that the dependency will be always fulfilled with the same instance at the activity component level. So every single instance of that dependency that we request to the activity component is going to be the same. But between activities, it's going to be different. And we could also do exactly the same for fragment, for view, or whatever. There's more. Actually, yes. And this is probably the most interesting part. Hilt comes with some APIs that make dependency injection super easy in view models or workers. Traditionally, if you want to use dependency injection using Dagger in view models, it requires some classes, helper classes, or factories that could be considered boilerplate code. With Hilt, it's as easier as adding this annotation here, and that's it. Hilt will create the assisted factory for us, and will inject everything into the class. And talking about testing, Hilt comes well prepared for testing. I would say it's easier than Dagger. You can replace the modules that we talked before only for testing for a new kind of modules that provide the same dependencies, but with mocks or whatever. So it's as easy as replacing modules, super easy. This is an example of an instrumented test for our activity, Baker activity that we saw before. We saw that we were using mixers and appliances. For the test, this test in concrete, we would like to uninstall the modules because we don't want to use these concrete implementations that they are providing, and we would like to define our own for the test. So it's super easy, just adding a notation here, removing the modules, and defining the test, the kind of concrete implementations or the kind of object that we would like to use, fulfilling this kind of or this type of objects. Talking about our experience in GitHub. Well, I mean, we are perfectly aware that this is an alpha because Hilt is an alpha library. And probably we will need to change some things in the future. But the cool thing about Hilt is that it is completely decoupled from our code. I mean, nothing, just the annotations are added to our code. Everything else is generated by the library. Also, when we started, I mean, the GitHub app was shipped or was released in April this year. So it's a very young app. And obviously, because of business reasons, we didn't take dependency injection into account during the first architectural decisions. So at some point, we decided that we needed a dependency injection to speed up some development. And the alternatives were, basically the only alternative that we had was Dagger, because we had a lot of experience with Dagger. And yeah, we know that coding and coding are there. But yeah, I mean, knowing Dagger, the choice was clear. But then we realized, or we saw that Google released Hilt, and we decided to give it a try. We built a couple of sample projects, and yeah, the difference was huge. With Hilt, the learning curve was just 1 day, basically, and the number of classes that we had to write was super small, and they're super decoupled from our code. So if something goes wrong, and for some reasons, we had to roll back and use Dagger, changing that will be super easy. And luckily, we didn't have to do that because we have been using Hilt for a couple of months in production code, and it's working super fine. Obviously, there are some things that we would like to have that they are not there. But yeah, we are hopeful that the tool is gonna get improved with time. And this is basically a list of things that we saw that made us to take the decision to use Hilt rather than Dagger 2. Basically, the most obvious one is super easy to use, especially this is interesting for new hires. Actually, I have had some experience of people using Dagger, and they basically don't know how it works. They just copy, paste code, and change as they need it. With Hilt, that does not happen because it's super easy to understand. It speeds up a lot of the development because with Dagger, you have to write a few classes every time that you try to inject new things. With Hilt, that doesn't happen. And for testing, we noticed some improvements. In Dagger 2, maintaining a test component could be tedious. With Hilt, as we saw before, it's just replacing modules. And as we said before, there are some things that could be improved. For instance, we found some problems that we cannot run all the tests manually in Android Studio, and we need to run the instrumented test that uses injection using the command line. This is this is something that we can live with. And if you ask me if I would migrate my existing project from Dagger to Hilt, I would say that maybe. It depends of the usage that you are doing of Dagger, because not everything that you can, as the Hilt is built on top of Dagger, so basically you could do whatever using Dagger. But strictly speaking, with Hilt, you cannot do everything that Dagger can. But this is just very specific situations and very related with components. Besides that, it depends. If you feel comfortable with Dagger, or if I were comfortable with Dagger, I will stick with Dagger. But I will also take into consideration Hilt because, yeah, it's super easy to implement. And yeah, this was basically everything. I went a little bit faster than I thought. But yeah, if you got any question, feel free to ask them, Spanish, English, whatever you want, and I will try to answer them the best possible way.
Great. Congratulations for that. I think that is very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have a few questions that we can share. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry. Okay. So our question is it possible with Hilt to inject activity context into view models without the risk of leaking it?
Yes. Actually, it's very easy. You can inject the application context just using an annotation that's defined by default by the library, and you don't need to worry about anything else. The library would handle everything.
Okay. Another question, and this comes from me, is if you would recommend to put a context inside the view model for any reason.
This is a different topic, I would say. I will try not. I will try not to. You can, and actually, there's this application view model class that actually provides me with. If I were to do that, I would use application view model to do that.
Yeah.
But I will try not to, because it couples the view model even more with 100. And yeah, at the end, if you retrieve resources or whatever from the view model, it depends. It depends on your taste, but I would prefer not to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Another question is, did you have on GitHub any problem, a crash, or a misbehavior because the alpha state of Hilt?
We have problems, but not because of Hilt. Let me explain. The way that view models are created by Android is a little bit different. They are not created in compilation time, so you cannot really check if a view model is being properly defined. So what happened to us is that we declare some view model as consumer of dependencies, but we didn't annotate the activity accessing that view model as an entry point of Dagger, of Hilt, sorry. This causes a lot of, a few crashes, not a lot of, but a few crashes that were kind of tricky because Dagger compiler didn't warn us because of this, because of the nature of view models. So I would say it was our fault, not Dagger's fault or Hilt's fault. But we will have liked Hilt to warn us that, hey, you are trying to inject this in a place that Hilt is not initialized. But regarding the alpha state, nothing. Everything works super smoothly, no problems. We're quite happy with that.
Okay, so I guess that do you recommend even being on alpha? to someone to start using Hilt right now, right? Or not?
I don't recommend anything. I won't recommend someone to use an alpha library. I won't put that responsibility on myself. I can tell you about our experience. We are using it. We are quite happy. No bugs. And the problems that we found, maybe is this problem that I mentioned before about the command line, that we need to run the instrumented test using the command line. But they are aware of this bug, and it's a gravely, and I think, issue, and they are fixing it. But besides that, we haven't faced any issue, any bug.
Okay, sounds great. Sounds great. Another question. What do you think about Coin?
I have no idea. I mean, I read about Coin. I know how it works. I never use it. I only have experience with Dagger and Hilt.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, we didn't consider Coin or coding as alternatives because we had experience with Dagger.
Okay, that makes sense. Another question, do you have any experience with injecting into fragment constructor while using navigation library?
No, we don't use the navigation library, and I never use it, so I have no experience about that. Okay. But looking at the documentation, there's not any special treatment, at least in the documentation. I don't know if something will change. Sorry.
Okay, good. How can inject runtime parameters? It is recommended in the constructor or setter. I'm not sure about this question. But...
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is asking about assisted injection. For instance, if you want to use a view model with parameters injected directly from the activity once the activity has started, if he or she is asking about that. And no, you cannot use assisted injection with Hilt. As far as I know, this is on the roadmap for the team, according to the advocates. That from time to time they publish things on Twitter, but I have no idea. Right now, it's not available, I think.
Okay. A question from me, coming derived from this one, is, for example, in the project where I work, we use intensive Dagger, okay, raw Dagger, and we use also the library I think that is from Square, which is assisted injection, right? And we use it, for example, for the workers, for work manager. My question is, can you use this library, the assisted injection library, with Hilt, I guess, because it's built on top of Hilt or Dagger, or is there any problem?
Two things. There are an API for workers, which is super to use. It makes dependency injection super easy. But yes, you can use assisted injection library. Actually, there's a GitHub project which is called Pokédex, which get very popular lately, and they are using, for the view models, they are using Hilt and also assisted injection to set some runtime dependencies into the view model. It's possible.
Okay, that works. Reza is asking, for dynamic parameters in the view model constructor, one can use view state handle.
I'm not sure what they are talking about.
Yeah, I think that because there is a library for managing the state for the view models, and I think that it's related with that, but I'm not following either. So, Reza, if you can reformulate, we can try to read it again, if that makes sense. Another question is, okay, how can inject No, go ahead.
It's possible. It's possible. The library provides an annotation, and basically you need to annotate the dependency with this annotation to get the safe state handle instance from the activity. It's possible.
Okay, great. How can inject runtime parameters? It is recommended in the constructor or the setter?
I guess this is the same question that we had before, is how to initialize with values from the activity the view model. I mean, if you use assisted injection, you can do it by construction, kind of construction. If not, I mean, I guess it depends on you. You can use always a setter, which is the best thing that I guess that we could find.
Yeah. As you can see, assisted injector is very popular. There are a lot of questions coming from that. That's good, I guess.
Yeah, it's so far.
Another question coming from Guille. Any runtime issues? We are currently migrating and the compiler doesn't catch everything for us. Any warning or heads up? Edit kind of replied that already.
I mean, we haven't found any issue. It's true that this is one of the things that we took into account. We ran some empirical test measuring the runtime, the number of times that we had to clean the cache and restart Android Studio regarding compilation errors. And we didn't find anything that should worry us a lot right now. And compilation time, regarding compilation time, was kind of similar to Dagger. It's hard to measure, but we didn't feel anything that makes us feel strong about going against Hilt.
Okay. Another question is if you recommend for a project, I guess that you answered this already in your presentation. Do you recommend for a project already working with Dagger, supporting Hilt as soon as possible?
It depends on your taste. I mean, give it a try to Hilt and see how you feel about that. If it provides everything that you need in your project, and yeah, you should be the one making that decision. For us, it went pretty well. Maybe for others, it won't. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, answer it to be ambiguous, but yeah, and these kind of things.
Yeah. Okay, so the last question is if you found any problems with build times. I guess really. Incremental or something like that.
Obviously, if you configure incremental compilation properly, taking into account all the variables in your project, like room, like bindings or whatever, and you configure the compiler to work fine, obviously the completion time is going to increase a little bit, but it's something that we can live with. We didn't went from 2 minutes to 20 minutes. It doesn't happen like that. It was just, I don't know. I cannot give you the numbers, but it was not something super huge that make us feel, again, strong against using Hilt.
Okay. Okay, so I guess those were all the questions. I think that it's been really interesting. I learned a lot. I'm willing to add Hilt in my project as well, following your recommendations. I'm going to read the Pokédex project and I'm going to check their usage of Hilt. I guess that there is a lot of documentation as well coming from Google. There is this guy, Manuel Vigo, which is an Android developer advocate, which is making great efforts to write amazing documentations. He has plenty of videos, so I recommend you all to check them out. And I guess that's it. Thank you once again, Alfredo, for being with us. And we are having another event soon. I think that it's 10 December, but I'm going to post it on Meetup and everything. And we are going to talk about Kotlin multi-platform, which I think that is very interesting as well. And this one is going to be on Spanish, okay? Anyway, we are going to announce it and everything. So thank you all for watching us. Thank you for your time, Alfredo. We will talk to everyone soon.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. See you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.